I'm Pam, a mother, runner, business owner, and the host of the I Work For Me podcast. This podcast shares stories from the world of entrepreneurship because starting a business doesn't have to feel like a far-off dream, and running one shouldn't feel like a nightmare. Astrid Gillwald, mother, networker, professional public speaker. She supports female empowerment via Vaneka, Women's Property Network, and business agency. She's full-time employed, a consultant, a side hustler. Oh, and did I mention she's a networker? Astrid Gillwald, welcome to I Work For Me.
Thank you so much, Pam.
Tell me about Astrid. What is it that you do? Where did you start? And you have a full busy schedule. Explain it to me.
Right. So where did I start? I started in sales. And it's quite interesting. I think I probably spent 20 odd years trying to get out of sales and recently realized, actually, that's what I love doing. So yes, I do lots of things, but at the end of the day, they're all to do with people and connecting with people, regardless of the industry or what it is I'm selling. So Astrid is somebody who likes to be busy. I have two amazing daughters. I'm very proud of, 17 and 20. I have an amazing close network of friends, and those are the things that sustain you. I've learned the importance of self-care, which is also a thing to make time for oneself. And then the things that feed me are things like getting involved with Vaneka, which is for survivors of human trafficking and prostitution, where we actually have a shelter. We re-educate them. We opened a culinary school through things like Women's Property Network, where the Education Trust, we've put 130 women through 3-year plus property-related degrees. Through Business Engage, where the goal is to have 30% female representation at board level. And pre-COVID, the year before COVID, we put 12 women onto JSE listed boards in South Africa. So those are all the charitable things, which are all great. And then Astrid has to actually put a roof over our head. And I have to pay for that and feed myself. And for that, I work. I have an employer, so yes, I get a salary. But like so many other people in COVID, things changed and I had to hustle. But I've always hustled in some way, but now I'm hustling for extra money and different revenue streams. And that includes consulting. I'm head of strategic partnerships for OneGrid, who actually is my tenant as well. I have been selling property on the side, apartments. I've done commercial leases. So whatever it is that one needs to do. And, you know, somebody said to me the other day, how do you fit it all in? And I said, well, if it's important, you'll find the time. You will make the time.
Making the time. How important is time to you, and finding that balance between everything that you're doing? Because I'm listening to what you're saying and it's mind-blowing at all the various things you're doing. But how do you find the time to do it all?
Well, no, I thankfully I don't need much sleep. So I'm one of those. I'm a 5 to 6 hour a night.
Wow.
And then if I hit 6, I'm like, woof, that was a good night. So I'm generally up at 5. And so I have that time for self in the morning. So I'm a morning exerciser, whether it's walking 5Ks, doing a 30-minute at-home stretch weights workout, combination thereof. And then also, you sort of plan your time. I mean, you will laugh at me. I sit sometimes with a notepad. I'm a firm believer in the paper dump. And I'll have a heading for each thing that I'm busy doing. So each one has a page. And then what I do is I call the brain dump, and I just dump everything down. And then I look at it and go, okay, now I need to allocate my time accordingly. Because just because it needs to be done doesn't mean it needs to be done now.
That's clever.
So as long as you have a grip on everything that needs to be done, it's out of your head. It's not cluttering. You're not constantly going, oh, mustn't forget. Oh, mustn't forget. It's there. You know it's there. And you will slot it in.
So once you've done the brain, I'm assuming you do one for your non-profit stuff, your volunteer stuff, one for the networks, one for the work stuff, and you just brain dump for each one. And then
I literally dump it all down so that it's actually on paper. And it's interesting, the act of writing, and my handwriting is atrocious. I don't think anybody could read it. It literally is a code all unto itself. But the act of doing that, I remember it. It's a really interesting exercise. But then it's there, and then you prioritize accordingly, and you make the time. And not everything needs to be done. I think that's the other thing that maybe COVID has taught us is not everything needs to be done between 9 and 5. I find certain activities I do better after 8 in the evening, and they don't require other people, and so I do them then.
So what sort of activities are you talking about?
So it could be something like brainstorming an idea. Okay. I have an idea in terms of a different way of looking at something, or I need to put a proposal together for someone for a strategic partnership. I need to look at it. It's like, what are they going to get out of it? So yes, obviously I'm selling to them, but it needs to make sense for them. So actually look at who they are, what they do. How can I help them? How can we help them? How can we make sure that they derive actual benefit, not just perceived value out of it, in order to have a long-term partnership? And those things I often find, like between 8 and 10 in the evening, I will sit and do those things.
That makes more sense, because using 2 hours during your productive time when you could be dealing with clients and people that need your interaction, as opposed to dealing with 2 hours in the evening when it's just you and your brain and your thought process, and all the information that you need is available to you. I love it.
And it's also, it's like I have a funny, as much as I have my morning time, I have my evening time. So I'm very blessed. I live right by the ocean. And I have a little rule in my house that as best as we can, because yes, sometimes it's just not possible, but where we can, no work happens until the sun has set, which in summer means I start working later in the evening. As we are now losing light, I have to start earlier in the evening, but we take the moment to actually sit and enjoy the sunset. As bizarre as that sounds, actually sit outside and just watch the sunset and enjoy the moment.
And I'm assuming that you're talking about doing it with your girls.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's your family time. So that's like a no-go zone.
That's a no-go zone. That's, you take that, whether you sit and watch it for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, have dinner while you're watching it set, whatever. But it's like no work until the sun has set.
Wow. I think I'm going to steal that. Although I don't have the same view as you, so maybe not.
I'll live film it for you, and it's time, Pam.
We'll just Zoom together. How's that?
Yeah, but what it does is it creates balance, actually, if you think about it. It's not something I consciously did to create balance, but it does, because it gives us that time every day where we connect.
So that's your family time. And I'm assuming that that's like one of your, was it something that, you just said that it wasn't something that you decided on, but did you try and figure it out, or was it just something I needed to make time for my kids and that just seemed to be the most obvious solution?
No, it was always, I've always had that rule. I mean, I remember when my kids were little, and I'm talking like 3, and, and I was still married then, but I mean, we always had this rule, like when they were really little, they went to bed at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, but 8 o'clock kind of stuck for many years. And it was just like 8 o'clock, you go to bed. So we have the time with you from when we get home from work until 8 o'clock. That is our time with you. After 8 o'clock is our time.
Okay. And
we can't be good parents, and that if we don't actually have our time as well. And so in a way, it's just evolved. It's always stayed that way. That is always our rule. That's the family time.
That's fantastic. And then the boundaries with regards to this is when that time happens and when that time happens. Okay. I love that. I think it's absolutely fantastic that that's the kind of thing that you've implemented, and it becomes natural and normal, and it's just part of your everyday life.
Of course. Yeah, they know. It's not something that needs to be discussed. You know, except now, like on the odd occasion, as I say, things happen. My friend's 60th was yesterday, you know, and I've said, listen, I mean, he's very good friends with them as well. Do you want to come? Do you want to? No, we'll just like feed ourselves. I said, okay, cheers, I'm off. You know, I'm going to watch the sunset like 3 apartment blocks down the road. I'll wave.
But life does get in the way, doesn't it? So
yeah,
it's not one of those boundaries that it's an absolute hard no, not going to do that.
No.
Okay, so
I think you've got to be flexible.
Okay. And then taking that flexibility into, now you've done your brain dump and everything else, where does that go to from a business point of view? You know what it is that you're needing to do. If you look at what you're doing at the moment, how do you juggle all of that? How do you juggle being full-time employed and consultant and your side hustle?
Okay. So obviously the full-time employed, I'm based at the building. So at the property, so the full-time employed, I do service offices, so suites, not co-working. We rent out boardrooms, and then I have self-storage units, and then I have conventional leasing, so normal tenants as such. One of those normal tenants is OneGrid, who is the 3rd largest provider of web hosting in the country. And the fact that they're literally the floor below me makes it really easy for me to consult to them. And they approached me, and so that's worked out really well. And again, a lot of what I'm doing for them, I don't necessarily need to do between 9 and 5. You know, often I'll be sitting in the evening and working. I'm happy to work on the weekends to a point. So you just, you know, I come and I always, okay, have to get the 360 stuff done first. That's number one. But then I also know, for example, that every Tuesday from 9:30 to 11, I have a OneGrid Manco. So in the diary. For Women's Property Network, it's the first Tuesday of every month, we have a committee meeting at 5:30. It's in the diary for the year. My Vaneco board meetings, they happen at 7:30 in the morning. They're in the diary for the year. My Business Engaged DEOCO meetings, they're in the diary for the year. So having all of that planned up front helps a lot.
And then you juggle around it.
Yeah, but then you sort of know, okay, for me, for example, the 22nd to the 25th, I'm busy with month end, you know, from 360. But there are other days where I'm not as busy. So those days I might spend 7 hours working on 360 and only 2 hours on OneGrid and none on the charity things. And other days I will be spending 6 hours on OneGrid, 3 days consecutively. And then the charity stuff happens in between, as and when, you know, so that's always there. Because as needs arise, then you kind of put out, like, you're kind of like an octopus, you put out the tentacles, you know, to pull in the people that can actually work with you. And I think that's the other thing, is you can't do it alone. So you bring the people in that you need to, when you need to, in order to make things happen, in order to move things forward. Just because you're involved with everything doesn't mean you're physically doing everything.
And then the people that you're talking about bringing in, are they full-time employees? Are they?
Combination. So they could be things like, let's think now with Women's Property Network. We want to do something for Mandela Day. We have one of the potential sponsors is PG Bison, and they said, we'd like to do something with kids. I made a phone call on Friday. We found a school in Huncliffe in Hout Bay that's got 120 2 to 6-year-olds. And we're like, okay, so who are we going to call? Right, so we're going to phone. Let's see if Spur will do a lunch for everybody. Let's see if we can get clothing. Let's see if we can do a Santa shoebox for them. And so that's why I say calling people. So sometimes it's calling people who I know other people. Mm-hmm. There's an amazing person involved in Women's Property Network who's a property broker, but she's a magician on the side. So like phoned her, like, would you come and do a magic act? Oh. You know, so, you know, and then phoning other people I know who do face painting, things like that. So that's why I say calling people in. Sometimes you just need to actually be the conductor. You don't need to play all the instruments.
I love that analogy. Be the conductor. You don't need to play all the instruments. So, and you are the conductor. So you get this orchestra of amazing people together. So that brings me to the most important question of all, is the networking that you do. You're part of Women in Property Network. You're part of the other one, the business agency.
Yeah, Business Engage.
Oh, sorry, Business Engage. What drives you to be part of those sort of organizations?
Okay, so for me, one is there weren't many of those when I was starting out working. I mean, my first job when I was 17 was at a newspaper taking births and deaths over the telephone. And we literally had this black horn thing that hurt your ear for the first 2 weeks and a switchboard in front of the lights. It was like normal asseblief. Okay. And
Astrid, I think you're showing your age.
That was my first job. Yeah, very scary. But there were no organizations that were focused on pushing women forward, giving women opportunities, leveling the playing field. There was nothing, you know, and we're not even talking about gender-based violence, none of that. We're just talking about in the workplace. The conversations weren't happening. So I feel very passionately about it, and I think also because I have daughters, that you need to get involved. It's all good and well to sit there and go, oh, yeah, but I haven't got the time. You know what? If it's that important, you will find the time. Make the time, because everybody has something that they can give. And it doesn't have to be loud and on a stage. It could be mentoring somebody. It could just be having that cup of coffee with somebody once a month and going, how are you? What happened in that board meeting? How did you show up? How did they receive you? Did you manage to do that presentation without going blood red? How did you deal with the, request for a salary increase? Whatever it is, there's so many ways that one can help out. And I think that's what people sometimes don't realize. They think it always needs to be the grand gestures, and often it's not. It's the smallest consistent gestures that we, if we do them all the time, continuously, that have the biggest impact in the long run. So that's why I get involved in those things. And by default, I mean, thankfully, I love people. So by default, it has expanded my network as well. And I'm one of those people where my why in life is connecting people for positive change. And positive change doesn't necessarily mean financial.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the other thing people need to get. Yes, we do all need to make a certain amount in order to live. And we'd like to live as opposed to survive. Absolutely. But if you can connect people for positive change, it will come back. And it doesn't mean it always comes back to you. And that's not the reason you should be doing it. Then don't do it. Absolutely. But it will come back to your, I want to say, like your little universe. So it might not come back to Astrid, but it might come back to Vineka, in a way that benefits them. And indirectly, that brings me joy and that benefits me. So it's a weird circle, the way I have of looking at this.
I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. The fact that you are invested in other people so that they can benefit from it, which means that in turn, through their benefit, you benefit. And I think that that's such an amazing way of looking at the world as well.
Yeah. And our kids will benefit from that, because it means now, for example, my daughter's studying, but she's also doing internships while they're studying. And she has opportunities that didn't exist for women 20 years ago. I mean, that's how scary it is. They were not even considered in this field. And now she's getting opportunities. And it's interesting, we're having a discussion, and she said, so-and-so called me for an interview. And they said they're only interviewing women. And she says, I have a problem with them just interviewing me just because I'm a woman. She said, I'm hoping that they're also interviewing me because I have the skill.
Yes. But I don't think that anyone would put you in a position that means, especially if they're risking their own business, you're going to have the skills. So, and I get where she's coming from. And I think that a lot of us tend to be like that. I hope that I'm not being chosen just because of that. But on the other side, there's some people that, and we know, because we're a very diverse country. And there's some people that go, oh, I hope I'm not being chosen because of my sexual orientation, or I hope I'm not just being chosen. So it's not just her as a woman. There's so many other categories that feel exactly the same way. And ultimately, we can't allow that to keep being the reason why we do or don't go into a certain situation. So,
and I agree, but I think it's important that they're aware. And I think that's what's interesting, is that the youth, so she's 20, even my 17-year-old, the fact that they're having conversations around these things,
and
around
open to conversation.
Completely open, which I think is so healthy. You know, and they're completely non-judgmental. They are we're just having a conversation. So even if we don't agree, that's okay. You don't have to agree. But if we can try and understand and just be open to it, that's
Absolutely. But having the conversation is the first step. And the fact that you've created that space for them to have that conversation with you means that we're stepping miles ahead of where we were, as you say, 10, 20 years ago.
Oh. But that's what the networking does, is, you know, you need to keep having, I mean, I love, somebody said at a business engage function I was at, I'm trying to remember, but it was the most amazing thing. She said, have courageous conversations.
Have courageous conversations.
And I love that.
But that's scary. I mean, even for myself, I mean, I know how often I connect with people as well. But the courageous conversations are the ones that you stand out and you put yourself in front of someone that normally would not be considered okay. I get heart palpitations just thinking about it.
Yeah, but those are the ones that are going to be memorable. Those are the ones that I believe will really affect change. Those are the ones that will get people talking.
Yes.
And until we get people talking, nothing's going to change. I mean, you think about how much has changed in COVID. Well, suddenly everybody had to talk about working from home. Suddenly everybody had to talk about mental health. Everyone was talking about work-life balance, talking about homeschooling their kids. All these conversations that have been happening on the sideline for years, but suddenly it's okay, you know, and companies were actually putting together sessions on it. I mean, I know of huge corporates, and I've been part of some of them, having entire workshops on these issues for their staff, because they're suddenly like, oh, okay, we do need to have these conversations. And then what's really heartening, you know, I love, is there some of them who have taken so much of it, of what's come out of it from their staff and their employees and their consultants, their contractors, makes no difference, and gone back and go, okay, so we absolutely have to change the way we work.
And not just during COVID, but into the future.
For the future. For the future. And so, and that's having courageous conversations. It will effect real change.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's your new motto, having courageous conversations. I'm going to hold you to that one, Astrid. So having discussed what we've been talking about with regards to the fears and that sort of thing, what are the things that terrify you about the fact that you're running a side hustle, the fact that you're working for a boss? What are the pitfalls for yourself? What terrifies you?
So obviously you don't want to let anything drop. So that's the big thing, is like when you focus on that thing, to be focused on that thing that you're doing and to give it 110%, you know, whether it's for an hour, 2 hours a day, whatever it is, you still need to deliver and you still need to give it your all. So yes, I think that's probably the terrifying thing, is the balancing thing. And then when you're doing the hustle side of it, it's like, am I giving it enough? You know, and you don't want to be seen to be sort of what's the word? Sort of have time poverty for your side hustle. So I don't want to look at it as like, oh, don't worry, you know, that's only the thing I do if and when I have time. That it is still important. It is just as important, because like so many people, my side hustles with an S, came about because, like a lot of people, my salary got cut by over 50% when COVID hit. Okay, I'm in property, and there are people in property I know who got zero salary, people that got retrenched, and hence the side hustle, or hustles. And so you learn to pivot. So I think, yes, the fear is like, you know, have I dropped anything? Have I forgotten anything? You know, and then we go do the paper dump, brain dump. Like, okay, get perspective. But yeah, that's probably the biggest fear.
Okay, and hustles? You're telling hustles?
Hustles? Okay.
So how many hustle, or how many areas
potential income streams?
There we go. How many?
Potential income streams. So this was interesting. In COVID, right at the beginning, is I had people contact me for things, opportunities. And that was very interesting for me, was that people were saying, I'm looking at launching this. There's a property angle to it. I can't pay you anything, but when it comes off, you will be able to make X, Y, and Z. And I looked, I'm like, yeah, I could make a lot. Sure, I'll put in the hours, you know, and started doing that. And like, unfortunately, you know, we can't do anything until COVID is well and truly over globally with this particular item. But I put in the work. I did 3 months of work on it, and I packed it away. So said yes to the opportunity. So that's a potential income stream when the world starts traveling again. But then the other one was, I had another friend who said, oh, I've seen this networking thing, and like, you'd be the perfect person, you know, to do it, like to run it in a day-to-day. And I'm passionate about networking. And so that's what I worked on, obviously my normal job, my salary job, and then started working on this networking as well, which we called Shushka. And the idea there was to get people to network online, because we can't network face to face.
Okay.
So we created all these channels on the Telegram app. We did a website. We did the Facebook page, you know, all the social media that everybody else does. And then realized people don't want to pay. And then after that, we said, okay, well, we'll make it free, and we'll carry on putting out content.
Yes.
And came to the realization, like it was November, December last year, and I just said to my partner, I said, we need to put a pause on this. I was like, I passionately believe in it, and we are still putting information up, but people have got absolute digital fatigue, because this is the time when everybody was panicking about WhatsApp, and is it safe, and is it this, and is it that? And then they were getting Signal and Telegram and Clubhouse, and there's a Zoom thing, and it's an end of year party, and it's like, if I see one more Zoom invite, Telegram invite, Signal invite, Clubhouse thing, it's like, I'm done. Can we just have this year end? I think everybody was feeling like that. I just want to shut down the screen, and I will open it again on the 3rd of Jan. So, and yeah, I spoke to a lot of people, and they were experiencing the same thing. So what I want to do, I still want to do. It's just a timing thing. And I think that's been quite a hard pill to swallow, because like, I'm naturally like, well, why don't you want to network? You know, surely this is the time.
Do you not understand?
Yes, this is the time, people, you know, where you really should be connecting, because for the first time ever, it's easier to get to the decision maker. The gatekeepers are no longer there, because they're no longer in their offices.
Okay. So now connecting with them is that much easier.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So you're going to have to give us a 5 top tips for getting to the decision makers. That sounds like a definite masterclass on the offing right there.
Yeah. But it's just, you know, but it's simple things like that. It's like, I understand that you're tired, and I understand all the things, but we're going to give it to you for free. Just hit the subscribe button.
Yeah. So if you are a networker, right? So you've always been networking, yes. It's always been in person. How does it compare to networking online? I know for myself, I love being able to give people hugs, and not being able to give people hugs is like we don't even connect if we don't hug, you know, that kind of. So how have you been able to figure out the difference between the two?
So for me, in terms of my salary job, shall I call it? I've been here since level 4 because I've got tenants who had to operate throughout. So I've been at the building, which means that I'm still connecting with people physically, which is great. Not necessarily networking in the traditional sense, but still connecting with people. The online networking is interesting. So, for example, on Business Engage, we will do a presentation by somebody, and then you go off into sort of rooms, okay, with a host and 10 other people, 9 other people. And people get into these rooms, and these are powerful people. These are all what Americans call C-suite, okay? So they will be the CEOs, the CEO, CFOs, COOs, directors, heads of HR, or whatever. And we're talking about companies like EY, Distill, Weber Wenzel, Pfizer, BAT. And you get into this virtual room, and it's like silence. So literally, what I have found is I land up going into the room, and it's like, everybody's quiet. I'm like, okay, right. So I see Peter, what's happening at Pfizer? Can everybody go around and, spend like 1 minute introducing themselves, why they're here, who they are and why they're here? Why did they attend today's session? So it's a different way of creating a buzz. And then little trick I always do in all of these, especially on Teams, because these sessions all happen on Teams, is I screenshot the hell out of all of those sessions. And then afterwards, I go connect with all of them on LinkedIn because their names pop up.
Yes.
And then literally straight afterwards, because otherwise you forget, straight afterwards, go and connect with listen, if you had nothing in common and no desire to know something about someone's industry or personality, don't connect. But like there were people that really stood out for me. I literally go and connect with them straight afterwards, and I go, hi, fantastic to meet you, on the Business Engage. I loved your energy, and I love that you said about what's happening in East Africa. I find it fascinating. I'd love to engage with you on that. And that's it. And so you just need to sort of not put up that roadblock that like, I can't do it if it's not face-to-face, and learn new skills.
On how to connect.
Know how to connect, yeah, and be real.
In a virtual environment, yes.
Yeah. And be real, and by mentioning something that struck you, it shows then that you heard them.
And I get that 100%, because by listening to people and 90% of the time, I've been in so many meetings, and you're 100% right, this whole online fatigue thing is a thing. But then you see so many people that are present in the meeting, but their video's off. And you kind of go, so what are you actually doing? And I understand that there's connectivity issues for some people and that kind of thing. But all of them, I feel sorry for the speakers that are speaking to this room of
this wall of black.
It's horrific. So so the fact that you actually do mention, I like, this is what you said, or this is what you said, makes them know you did really interact and you were present. Because I think being present is critical in any space, whether you're in person or not. But somehow virtually, it's even more important.
Yeah. No, very, very much so. Very much so. So you can still network. You can't go, it's COVID. And then, but the other interesting thing has been, so with the One Grid strategic partnership, so I only started that in Jan this year.
Okay.
Is because of my network, I was able to reach out to certain people and companies, and because they know me, they will see me face to face. So that's been very interesting.
And
as opposed
by know you, they mean via LinkedIn or via a virtual?
No, they know me. So
okay.
As in, like, we've done meetings together, we have a history together, we've actually met a few times previously.
Okay. Which means
I've got people in my network I've known since I was 20.
Wow. Okay. And it's them that'll see you face to face as opposed to just online. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And the other thing I think is, especially now, is don't get offended when people say, I'm not doing face-to-faces. It's like, yes, so I might be like, oh, I'm so over it. But, we don't know what everybody's circumstances are, who they're living with, what their health issues are. And those are their issues.
Absolutely.
As in, like, respect their privacy, not their issues, as in mock them. So I think we just need to be aware that our future in terms of networking and even hustling is going to be a blended experience. I think we're going to have so many more blended experiences.
I love that, the blended experience. Come join the blended experience.
Yeah.
Or the blended movement. There you go.
Yeah,
so
that's it.
You've doing so many different things. What is your favorite hack, other than the mind dump? Is there anything that you can go, this is the one thing that can help me with my business or with my various activities?
Sure. One thing, probably having a sounding board, someone that you can talk to. So I have different people for the different fields I'm in. So obviously, if it's a property thing, there's someone I go to. If it's a networking thing, there's someone that I go to, and I go, I have this idea. What do you think? Am I being completely nuts? Is this completely off the wall? And so for me, that's probably my biggest sort of secret weapon is, and it's, you've also got to have enough self-belief. If you're going to worry what everybody's going to say, then you're not connecting with the right person as a sounding board, mentor, whatever it is. And you're not going to have one person for everything. That's so important. So because I'm doing so many different things, I have different people I go to and go, what do you think? I mean, like as chair of NECA, I've never been a chair in my life. When something comes up and it's like quite like has legal ramifications, boy, I'm on the phone to the attorneys I know and like somebody else I know who's on the board of directors of South Africa or whatever. And I'm like, I mean, can we do this? Can I send you that? You don't need to know it all. So I think that's probably my greatest tool / hack is having those sounding boards for the various things. Because I call them sounding boards because they're not mentors. I'm not going to them every month and asking or saying, this is how I progressed. Yeah. It's like when I need to just go, what do you think? Or what do I do? Or was that the right way to approach it? Or I forgot to do that, or I did that wrong. How do I recover without losing their faith, their trust, my integrity, whatever it is? But having those people in my space.
I love the fact that you're so open to the fact that I failed here or I made a mistake here, and you're asking people for help. I think that is such a huge lesson for so many people to know. How did you ever get to that? How did you know that being wrong is okay?
I think being wrong, sure. It's okay as long as you don't do the same thing twice.
Okay.
So I think, if we don't allow ourselves and we don't give ourselves permission, whether it's as an entrepreneur or whether it's as an employer, so whether we give ourselves or whether we give our employees permission to be accountable, in effect, okay, then how on earth do you expect anybody, them or yourself, to learn or to grow? So you have to give yourself permission to make a mistake, to fail, because that's how we learn. But if you do the same thing again, then you have a problem. Then you need to have a conversation with yourself, with that other person, But like, and I remember having this conversation, I mean, years ago with an employee. I think I was in my early 30s or something. And I said to her, it's like, I'm not angry at you. It's like, I understand why you did it. You've explained it to me, but do not do it again. Then I will be angry at you.
Because you should be learning.
But it's learning, and make sure that you or they understand where you went wrong, why you went wrong, so that you can't repeat it. I think, take those lessons. And there's nothing wrong with going, I'm really sorry. I mean, there are times where I've made a call on something and somebody has turned around and said, oh, but it can't be like that because of X, Y, and Z. And I go, well, that's new information. The call that I made was based on the information I had at hand.
Okay.
If what you are saying is true and correct, then I'm sorry, then I will take back what I said. Then that's not the right call or not the right decision, you know? And I don't think there's anything wrong. It's not a case of not believing in yourself or backtracking. It is backing yourself based on the information that you have at hand.
Yeah.
So ask lots of questions.
Yes. Okay. And the fact that you are open to the fact that there is other information out there, and you're not going to necessarily know it all, but your confidence is key. I'm loving having this conversation with you, Astrid. There's so much to learn. I know that you have promised us a blog on networking tips, so we're definitely going to be looking forward to that. But in closing, if there's anything that you could offer up to anyone from advice on running your own business, doing your side hustle, doing it all, working for a boss and doing a side hustle, what would your advice be?
Believe in yourself. Just take a deep breath, and you can do it if you believe in yourself. You're capable of so much more than you think. And I remember sitting at a table not so long ago, almost like pinching myself, going, I can't believe I'm sitting at the table with these women. I mean, they are so accomplished, you know, and I think so many of us have that. And then you actually go into a meeting. I've gone into these, I'm like, oh, well, they might have degrees in that, but they don't actually know a hell of a lot more than me, because I've actually done the stuff. So that's when I say, believe in yourself. Don't get intimidated by people's titles, by the amount of letters or numbers they have after their name. Because the chances are, if you are anything like me, and I've been working since I was 17, okay? If you're someone like me who has worked for multiple people and had your side hustles and that, you actually know a lot more than you realize. So trust yourself and just start. And it doesn't always work out. So Shishka hasn't worked out the way I want it to now. And that's okay. It will. I still believe in it, and I still believe in myself. I just need to find the right time. That's all. But believe in yourself. You know a lot more than you realize.
I love that. Believe in yourself. You know a lot more than you realize. Astrid, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. I know how important time is to you and how busy you are. So thank you for joining us on I Work For Me, and we will chat soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam. And yes, at the end of the day, we do all work for ourselves.
So true. Whether you work for a boss or not, you still work for yourself.
You work for yourself.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview and that you feel inspired to take your business to the next level. Please subscribe for more, connect with me and the community online at I Work For Me, and head over to the website for interesting reads and resources. If you like, you can support the team by buying them a coffee. Until next time, keep up the grind.